What's up, folks? This is Saito here, back at you with another edition of the Saito Talk series. Today's subject is going to be what I consider, I guess, since I mentioned this series a lot of times throughout the past, some have always wondered, what I'd want for a hypothetical, I guess you could say, sequel to Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter 6, in a way, how that would be. It's pretty simple of what it'd be a pretty simple what I would do with this sort of thing, as well as being a little bit complex. But I'll get to the complex part a little bit later. First things first, I'll mention what I'll do in terms of the gameplay. Gameplay wise, it wouldn't be too much in terms of like mechanic changes or anything like that. I feel like Final Showdown a lot of people actually agree to this. Final Showdown was kind of the pinnacle or the best, like perfect level of what you can do with Virtua Fighter. You can't really do more with this engine or with this series in terms of like mechanics wise or things you can add to it or change without it being polarizing. Either it will piss off fans who have been playing for years, or it's one of those things where it's like it's fine as it is. Take anything out, it's gonna be like, what the hell? We're going backwards. Add anything in like supers or armor or other dumb bullshit, and people are gonna be like, what the hell is this? What is this, Tekken now? Or what is, you know what I mean? They're gonna get pissed off about that. So what I would do in terms of gameplay stuff, I wouldn't change actual mechanics for the game. What I would do is kind of add a little bit more, I guess you could say, like visual flair, a little bit more like pizzazz, make it look a little bit more like cinematic or flashy in a sense. Not too much. It's not gonna be super crazy, but it would be just a little bit of extra little touches. Kind of like for example, mostly when in regards to things like counter hits, things like that, because there's thing in Virtua Fighter 5 and Final Showdown, certain counter hits have like a sort of like a zoom in camera effect when you hit them. Like say, I'm gonna mention Akira as like an example a lot because I use that character the most. Where if you hit say like a counter hit Tatsuzanko, it will go into like a zoom in like effect. It'll be a certain like camera effect for a really hard counter hit. What I would do with Virtua Fighter 6 is add a few more little things like that for certain other counter hit moves where they would have a little bit of a zoom in or a slight slow mo just to emphasize on those hits a little bit more. Because right now, when you do get a counter hit in Virtua Fighter, for the most part, it's very subtle. It's like a slight change in the hit spark by a different color and a little bit of a difference in terms of the way how the enemy gets like with their hits done, with their animation. It's very subtle. You can honestly miss it or never realize that it was there if you're not paying attention. So I'd add a little bit of that. Like say if you hit like say, I know if Akira he has 1P and he has like a little like lunging punch and he goes yeah, and it makes a like a sort of like a falling knockdown. They fly back. If you hit counter hit on that, maybe it'll have a little bit of a slow mo when it hits them and they go fall back. So you can see that it was a counter hit and not just a normal hit, for example, or hitting PK when he hits his little thing there, hits there. It would show a little bit of like a slow mo or to show that it's counter hit. Another thing also is that I would give the visual HUD, the UI, have a little bit of those little touches that was weirdly enough. It's only in arcade mode when you play when you play the game, where it'll show like how many hits your combo is or your juggle or if it's a real combo or if they could have gotten out of it when they hit the floor, things like that. Where it's like it's yellow or it's green for the number. It shows this in training mode too, where the numbers for it, or it'll notify that it's a counter hit, or if it's not, things like that. Have them be in the main modes and not just in arcade mode against the CPU. You know what I mean? So have those little things, add those to the UI for default play. That's what I'd mostly do for in terms of gameplay changes. I would also make by default. If you guys recall playing in vanilla Virtua Fighter 5 on PS3 and 360, so I guess version B and version C, there was an in-game commentary thing where it had like basically commentary characters, people just kind of just talking like whenever things happened during gameplay, and some replays when you watch arcade footage actually have it too, but they turn it on or turn it off. Have that as default. Kind of give the game like an esports feel. Yeah, that's which I'll bring up that point why later on when I get into the more detailed thing for for single player modes, but why I'm bringing this up. So on default, it would have this. Obviously, for tournaments and stuff, when people are streaming for tournaments, for the actual commentators talking, you can turn it off. We're not going to have it locked. You can turn that off. So the commentators on stream or wherever can say what they want to say. You know what I mean? It's very simple stuff. Character-wise, what I would say would be 5 new characters. Keep everyone else from 5 Final Showdown. Everyone comes back, as well as 5 new characters. 3 of them guest characters. That's an important thing. 3 of them are guest characters. However, they're all Sega guest characters. So we're not grabbing from different companies. We could maybe we can do DLC or an upgrade version in the future, but for the base Virtua Fighter 6, we'd have 3 guest characters, 2 brand new people. But yeah, that's what it'd be. The guest characters, and it's some pretty like easy picks when it comes to it, but they're picks that people would go, whoa, that's kind of cool though. There would be Kazuma Kiryu from Yakuza, Ryo from Shenmue, and Bon from Fighting Vipers. Those would be the 3 like guest characters being brought in. So 3 males, and then 2 brand new female characters. One of them, I don't know, I guess for the sake of, following a recent trend, to have one of them female characters be a Middle Eastern woman. Mostly because recently we've been having a lot of Middle Eastern fighters in recent fighting games. Like we had Shaheen, we had Rashid, we had Najid in King of Fighters, for example. So we had a lot of clearly Middle Eastern characters being added in recent fighting games. So Virtua Fighter can bring one too, just for that, just to kind of follow that trend, because it seems to be working a lot. And then the last female character can be whatever they want it to be. How they fight, obviously, I don't have that in my head. It's too much detail to go into right now, but we'd have like these type of characters. Obviously, the guest characters would represent how they fight in their specific games and so on. So they'd have their distinct moves and flair and shit like that. So it would bring a lot of hype. It would bring a lot of people who aren't super into Virtua Fighter or don't know too much about it would see these certain guest characters, go wow, and then they'd get into the game. That's why guest characters end up being put in these games. So put them in. That's what I do for base main game shit. Now, the big portion, what I would want for the Virtua Fighter 6 to be. This is because that's how the base game and arcade version would have. It would have 5 new characters, the little touches to the gameplay and the visual flair, things like that. That would be the base game and arcade versions. Obviously, you have customization, things like that, blah, blah, blah. That's a given. So, home console, single player content. Obviously, we keep all the other usual stuff, the amazing tutorial, the training modes, the combo trial, command trial, all that stuff. We keep that stuff in. That's obviously a given. You bring all that stuff back. Obviously, it's going to come back in. But we bring back something kind of like in 4 Evolution and 5, where we have a sort of a quest story mode. But unlike in those ones where it was just simply picking a character and you're playing in made up arcades or whatever, or I guess real arcades, but you fight some CPUs and you fight some made up tournament things and that's it. Raise your rank and unlock costume parts. It kind of just goes. It's kind of like a whatever thing. You it's fun, but you're not reaching any real goal in terms of how you really. There's no story behind it or anything like that. And that's the thing about this game. Virtua Fighter 6 would have a story mode, but it wouldn't be a story mode about what is going on with Akira? Is he still going to be a martial arts master? Is Pai Chan going to reconcile with her father? All that shit. No, we don't care about that. But let's be completely honest with ourselves, nobody really wants to care about that kind of stuff. Especially now, it's a bit too late now to have that be thrown in. Because the games it's too long now. Everything's always been the instruction manuals and supplementary material. We don't want that. What Virtua Fighter 6... or my dream Virtua Fighter 6's story mode would be we'd have a character creation tool similar to how Phantasy Star Online 2 has, but not too much detail, but somewhat of a detail where you create an avatar character that's supposed to be you, or a character you want to be you, whatever. how they appear, and that character avatar would also be the avatar you use for when you go online, for like you go into lobbies and stuff. So you'd walk around little like virtual arcades and stuff, kind of like in Dead or Alive 4 and like recent Arc System works on online games when you go into lobbies and stuff with your friends and little arcade machines. So that's to be your avatar and your story mode avatar at the same time. So this is where we're gonna get into like a bit ambitious, ambitious. I'm saying because let's be frank, Sega has the capital. They have the resources to make a story mode of this level of detail that I'm about to get into. They can do it. They have the technology. They have the manpower. They have people who can do this if they actually wanted to put in the work for this. So, character creation tool, create your avatar, but you'd also create. You'd be given also choices like about like what like their background history is, like where they live, where they are from, like if are they from North America, South America, Asia, Europe, so on. I mean, little like kind of broad, like continent areas or whatever. So that where there's kind of like where their hometown is, where their starting point is, where they live, as well as like kind of slight bits of what their personality is, not too much. So that kind of like procedurally generates uh, a pool of like certain characters that it will also generate for their story mode, for their story. So like you could have a character, your basic vanilla, main character guy or girl, and then it'll procedurally generate, here's your rival character is a brash, cocky dude. You have a submissive, childhood friend who may or may not like you. I mean, you can have little things like that. Or maybe your character is a little bit different. You have a tomboy best friend, and your rival is a little bit more like demure or a little bit more shy, but they grow to be stronger. I mean, you have little things like that, and the story mode itself would be about you wanting to become a pro, like esports level, like pro Virtua Fighter champion. Because that's because the thing about it is that we, as like a gaming society or whatever, has been going towards this concept of esports and tournaments and competitive play a lot of our games. But as far as I'm aware, we don't really have a fighting game that has like a story mode or anything like that where that is the main goal in the game. So this Virtua Fighter 6 would have its story mode be all about that, where you are a up and coming player. You're training. You're going into local arcades or local fighting game hangouts and things like that to face people, learn. And the thing about this game, about the story mode, is that it would also be a way to teach players how to get better as a player as a whole. Because Virtua Fighter, the previous games already had adaptive AI where they learned your patterns and made you kind of have to learn how to like mix yourself up or do things differently, as well as the AI themselves being already really good. So this story mode could also have characters or AI people that like they play certain ways to kind of teach you how to get past certain habits or certain play styles and things like that. You can have like they'll make a character who's like clearly a masher who just presses buttons like a monkey, or it can have someone who's like very very defensive to teach you try to find a way to break defenses or use guard break moves or grabs, things like that. Like that's the thing, and they'll even like say things like they'll have characters saying like watch out, this guy has a very strong defensive play style before you start getting into it, and you play that person and things like that. It'll have like a visual novel story where you have choices, like dialogue choices for certain parts of branching storylines and so on and so forth. And sooner or later, you can enter tournaments in the game or in-game tournaments, and depending on your results, you get approached by maybe like a sponsor or something like that, and so on. So like the story can change. Like you could be someone who goes on to become like a crazy champion, or you can be the guy who goes 0-2 every single time, and that story will change depending on that, or it'll go towards that. So good and bad endings, and so on and so forth. That's something that I feel like would be a really cool idea. And on top of that, a little like detail the game could do is that depending on which area your hometown or your starting point in the game is, the game when you go into tournaments where they're like technically streaming a tournament or doing an event like in the game they're streaming it, the UI can change where it's like different like made up stream overlays and the gameplay screens and little spots stuff like that, and they can have the in game commentary track where the characters have the in game commentary, but another bit of like ambition, so more or less, is that each main area would have different languages. So like you'd have a North American area where it's mostly people talking English. You'd have like a Brazilian area, a Chinese area, Korean area, Japanese. You know what I mean, so on and so forth. So it'll be like on one hand there'd be like it's a really cool extra detail to it and adds to the esports feel of like listening or watching streams from different parts of the world and seeing how they talk and things like that. You'll have like different types of like dialects or different types of commentary styles. One guy's super hype, one guy's more calm and analytical, things like that, and so on and so forth. And obviously, for the really, really big tournaments, even if it's a big Japanese tournament or a big North American tournament, you'd have like certain languages that are only in that spot, and you could have your character be, depending on how their circumstances are or what their results are, if they're getting stronger or whatever, that maybe they get opportunities to move to different areas. Like maybe they're like, oh, I'm doing really good. I got approached by a certain sponsor. I'm making good money. I can move to Japan and get stronger there. You know what I mean? And then that also shifts your in-game commentaries too, because now you're in an area where they're speaking Japanese instead of English, and so on and so forth. It's like, I feel like an idea like this would be it'd be insane. Like people would, I feel like it would be one of those things where it's like people would be talking about this for years, where like it's once again something that hasn't been done before, and it'd be done by something like this. So by the way, let Sega see this, tell them about this, let them know we are out there. Virtua Fire fans want a new entry in the franchise. I think it's been well over 15 years or so, almost 15 years or so since the last main entry has happened. I think Virtua Fighter 6 came out in 2005 or 2006, and Final Showdown was 2011 or 2010. So counting their last revision, it's been 8 or 9 years, but counting the last installment, it's been 15 or 14, 15 years. And now we're in this era now where we're bringing back a lot of franchises, or like we just got a new Samurai Showdown. It's been how many years now since that franchise had a thing? We had a new King of Fighters like 3-4 years ago. Street Fighter 5 3-4 years ago. Tekken 7 has been out for years. So on and so forth. We have all these fighting games coming back. Hell, a new Soul Calibur that we hadn't had one since the early 2010s with Soul Calibur 5. And that was a franchise we thought was never going to come back because of how bad and how negative the sales and the reception and everything for Soul Calibur 5 and its weird free-to-play, single-player only, online-only game, Lost Swords. You know what I mean? We didn't think Soul Calibur was going to come back. It came back. So why can't Virtua Fire? Dead or Alive had two major installments with 5 and 6. Though I'm baffled why 6 is like literally 5, but a third of the content gone. But anyways, like it's time for a new Virtua Fighter. It's surprising to me that we still haven't gotten one, and I feel like this idea right here, this dream Virtua Fighter 6 that's been in my head. I've had this idea in my head for like almost a year now that I've been thinking of this idea, and then when I keep seeing more franchises and series get announced and shown or brought back, I'm like, we need Virtua Fire. We need a new one. And then we keep not getting that. And now we have Sega going, oh my god, 2021 is going to be the year of Sonic. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go again. You guys haven't said this the past like 4 times now. Anyways, once again, all this stuff was kind of everything that I said over here was kind of off the cuff. I didn't really have an outline of what I really wanted to say, but I think I got everything out what I wanted to get into. So, once again, this is another installment of Saito Talks. I hope you guys liked what I had to say, and those who are, you know, really feel like you want a new Virtua Fighter, like, spread this around. Let people know. Get a discussion going, if these are good ideas or not good ideas, so on and so forth. You all have a good day, and, catch you next time.